You clicked on this video with intent. Somewhere inside you, you already understand that the world does not reward softness. It rewards calculation. It rewards the individual who sees the entire board while others focus only on the pieces in front of them. So let me be direct from the start. This is not motivation. This is not encouragement. This is a framework. A deliberate, unsentimental framework that Niccolò Machiavelli himself might have shared privately with a ruler behind closed doors. You are about to understand how influential men dismantle others. Not with violence, not with noise, but with accuracy, restraint, and psychology so refined that the damage is done before it is noticed. Most men believe strength must be visible. It does not. Real strength is the silent move that goes unnoticed. Real strength is recognizing what another man desires before he understands it himself, and deciding whether to provide it or deny it. That is influence, and influence is why you are here. So focus. Remove distractions. Pay attention. Because what follows over the next 20 minutes will alter how you interpret conversations, conflicts, and every environment you enter. Welcome to the game. Rule 1. Study him before you act. The first principle Machiavelli impressed upon those who sought power was simple. Never act until you have analyzed your opponent so thoroughly that you understand him better than he understands himself. Most men respond instinctively. They react emotionally. They grow angry. They strike without direction. And they fail every time. You will not follow that path. You will become the observer, the one who listens while others speak, who remains silent at the table while quietly noting every weakness, every insecurity, every opening that the other man does not realize he is exposing. Every individual has patterns. Every individual carries a vulnerability he believes is hidden. Your responsibility is to identify it, not through interrogation or confrontation, but through observation. Notice what makes him defensive. Notice who he seeks approval from. Notice where his confidence fades and where his tone shifts. That is where the fault line exists. Machiavelli advised that a wise man should follow the paths set by great men and learn from those who achieved supremacy. And those men never rushed. Alexander observed his enemies for months before advancing. Caesar listened carefully before he ever addressed the Senate. They understood something modern men often ignore. Information creates dominance. The one who knows more about his opponent holds the advantage. Always. So before you speak, before you act, before you reveal intention, observe. Watch him in casual settings. Watch him under stress. Watch him when he believes he is unseen. That is when his true nature appears. Once you recognize it, you control it. Rule 2. Control the narrative. Here is what separates truly dangerous men from ordinary ones. Dangerous men do not argue over events. They shape what others believe about those events. That is the real contest. It is not truth that matters most, it is perception. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, but few know what you truly are. Consider that carefully. The person who directs the narrative controls the environment, the relationship, and the result. In practice, when someone challenges you, your instinct may be to defend yourself. Do not. The moment you defend, you have accepted his frame, his story, his version of reality. Instead, you change the frame entirely. You do not answer the accusation. You examine the accuser. You do not justify your actions. You require him to justify why he initiated the challenge. This is psychological redirection, and it is one of the most effective tools in strategic influence. The mind cannot maintain two competing narratives at the same time. Introduce a new one, and the old one weakens. Political leaders understand this. Military commanders understand this. Executives who survive public crises understand this. They do not argue against the smoke. They change what people see when they look at it. Your reputation is your territory. Anyone who allows another person to define it has already surrendered authority without resistance. Control the narrative or be controlled by it. Rule 3. Isolate his alliances. No man is powerful in isolation. Remember that every influential figure stands on a network. Friends who affirm him, mentors who advise him, allies who cover his weaknesses. That network is not just support. It is leverage. And if you intend to weaken a man strategically, you do not confront him directly. You undermine what supports him. Machiavelli observed that people are driven by immediate needs, making them easily deceived. That is the opening. You do not need to openly turn allies against him. You only need to introduce uncertainty quietly enough that they begin doubting him themselves. Poorly timed comment. A deliberate pause. You position yourself as reasonable, composed, and trustworthy, while gradually allowing him to appear unstable, inconsistent, or overly emotional. This is not cruelty. It is structural dismantling. You remove support one element at a time, and no one notices until the structure fails. History confirms this. Empires rarely collapse from external pressure alone. They fall when internal loyalty fractures. Rome weakened through betrayal and division long before external forces arrived. The same applies here. You do not need to defeat your opponent directly. You only need to ensure that when pressure comes, he turns around and finds no one behind him. Isolation is strategy without confrontation. A man with allies is resilient. A man alone is already compromised. Ensure he stands alone. Rule 4. Feed his ego, then withdraw it. Every man has an ego, without exception. And the ego is more than a weakness, it is access. An access point many leave unguarded. Strategic psychology teaches what institutions do not. The fastest way to influence someone is not by attacking their ego, but by reinforcing it. Compliment him. Acknowledge him publicly. Allow him to feel respected, capable, admired. Let that approval become something he relies on. Then remove it. Stop engaging. Redirect your attention elsewhere, especially in his presence. The reaction will be immediate. He will overcompensate. He will seek validation. He will pursue the approval you conditioned him to value. This push-pull dynamic is one of the most effective mechanisms in psychological control. Machiavelli wrote that men are guided by love or fear, but he understood that admiration can be created and withdrawn, and that loss is often more destabilizing than fear. Fear keeps a man cautious. Loss of approval makes him reckless. In that state, he reveals too much. He reacts emotionally. He abandons discipline. And that is when mistakes occur. This pattern appears repeatedly in leadership, business, and politics. A figure once celebrated, suddenly ignored, often becomes erratic. You did nothing aggressive. You simply gave him status through your recognition and then removed it. That is control without force. That is Machiavelli applied. Rule 5. Weaponize patience. Let me tell you about the one weapon no man anticipates and no man can truly defend against. Patience. Not the passive, harmless patience people are taught growing up. This is deliberate patience. Calculated patience. The kind a predator uses when it observes without moving, waiting for the precise moment when separation creates opportunity. This is the discipline you must develop because the world is crowded with men who act quickly, speak quickly, decide quickly, and lose just as quickly. Impulsive men are the simplest to defeat. They reveal their intentions before acting. They respond to provocation automatically. And every reaction gives away information, leverage, and control. Machiavelli wrote that nature creates few men who are brave, while discipline and training create many. What he also understood is that true courage is not charging forward first. It is the ability to sit with discomfort, uncertainty, and silence, and still not act until the timing is exact. This is what separates beginners from architects of power. The beginner demands results immediately. The strategist plants actions that pay off months or years later. You must train yourself to think in phases, not impulses. When a man provokes you, do nothing. When he insults you, acknowledge it internally and move on. When he pressures you to react, become the calmest presence in the room. Nothing unsettles an aggressive man more than someone who cannot be pushed. Your restraint will disturb him. Your composure will unsettle him. He will begin inventing scenarios in his own mind about your intentions, and those imagined outcomes will trouble him more than any words you could offer. Time is a weapon that leaves no evidence. Learn to use it. Rule 6. Strike where he feels secure. Every man has a stronghold, not physical but psychological. It may be his profession, his intellect, his reputation, or his position within a certain group. Whatever it is, that is where he feels protected. And that is precisely where he least expects resistance. Most men make the mistake of confronting strength directly. They challenge an opponent where he is most reinforced. That is not strategy. That is ego presenting itself as bravery. Machiavelli taught that conflict is not won by attacking where the enemy is strongest, but where he is least aware. A man is always least aware where he feels safest. Consider this carefully. A man who prides himself on intelligence rarely prepares for being quietly outmaneuvered. A man who believes his circle is loyal rarely imagines standing alone. A man who trusts his position never plans for its collapse. That is where the fault begins, not in what he has protected, but in what he assumed needed no protection. This is strategic misdirection. You allow him to focus on what seems important while the real move is already underway. You let him win debates that have no impact so he never notices the one action that does. History is full of leaders who defended every visible border and still lost the decisive ground. Do not make noise where noise is expected. Be silent where safety is assumed. That adjustment alone makes you more effective than any man who relies solely on force. Find the blind spot. Rule 7. Become unreadable. Here is a truth that changes everything once you accept it. Any man who can be fully understood can be defeated. If someone knows what angers you, he will provoke it. If he knows what you want, he will use it. If he can predict your next step, he will be waiting for you. This is why the most powerful men in history were rarely the loudest. They were the most difficult to interpret. Machiavelli wrote that a leader must be both fox and lion, to recognize traps and intimidate threats. What is often overlooked is that the fox survives not through strength, but through unpredictability. You must become difficult to read. Be calm when anger is expected. Be silent when argument is assumed. Walk away from opportunities everyone thought you would pursue. This is not inconsistency. It is control. When people cannot predict you, they cannot prepare for you. And when preparation fails, uncertainty creates fear. Not fear of aggression, but fear of the unknown, the most powerful force in human psychology. Begin practicing this immediately. Stop revealing your plans. Stop displaying every emotion openly. Stop giving reactions freely to anyone who challenges you. Every visible reaction is information. Every exposed emotion is leverage. Protect your inner state carefully. Let others speculate. Let them debate your intentions. While they are occupied trying to interpret you, you are already operating beyond their reach. Be the presence they cannot track. Be the silence they cannot explain. That is control. Rule 8. Master the ability to walk away. This may be the most counterintuitive lesson of all, yet it is also one of the most powerful. The ability to leave. Most men cannot do it. They remain tied to outcomes, people, and situations long after those things stop serving them, because their pride will not allow release. They stay in conflicts already lost. They pursue validation that will never come. They invest energy in struggles that were never worth entering. And with every moment they remain, they lose influence. The man who can walk away completely, without explanation, without closure, without needing the final word, becomes uncontrollable. That is what unsettles others. Nearly every manipulation depends on one assumption: that you need something. Approval, success, resolution. The moment that need disappears, the leverage vanishes. When you demonstrate that you are willing to lose the deal, leave the table, or end the interaction permanently, the balance of power shifts instantly. Machiavelli understood that the man willing to lose everything often loses nothing, because detachment is not emptiness. It is authority. You are not retreating. You are showing that nothing external governs your internal state. That realization destabilizes anyone facing you. Practice this in small ways. Leave arguments unfinished. Exit conversations at their peak. Decline expectations placed on you by others. Train yourself to detach from outcomes. The man who clings can be guided, manipulated, and trapped. The world praises persistence, and sometimes it is necessary. But wisdom lies in knowing the difference between persistence and desperation. Persistence serves a vision. Desperation serves a need. Eliminate the need. Remove it entirely. When you stand before someone who has nothing to take from you, nothing to threaten you with, and nothing you require, you will notice a change. That change is fear, the fear of confronting someone who is free. And freedom is the highest form of power. The final law: become unbreakable. Everything you have heard leads to this single truth. You have learned how to observe, shape perception, weaken alliances, apply patience, manage ego, exploit blind spots, remain unreadable, and walk away. These are powerful tools. Most people will never fully understand them. But the highest level of power is not breaking others. It is becoming someone who cannot be broken. Let that idea settle deeply. Many learn how to dismantle opponents but never strengthen themselves. They refine offense while neglecting defense. And when those same tactics are used against them, they collapse. That will not be your path. Machiavelli's core teaching was not cruelty. It was self-rule. Complete command over one's thoughts, emotions, and direction. The leader he described was not ruled by circumstance. He was governed by his own will. That is the standard you are building toward, not domination for its own sake, but internal stability so strong that no external force can shake it. You achieve this by mastering yourself first, by regulating your reactions until nothing can pull you off center, by examining your own weaknesses with honesty and removing them one by one. Turn every failure into instruction. Turn every setback into leverage. Turn every betrayal into insight. This is not about losing feeling. It is about control. A man without feeling is careless. A man who feels but is not ruled by it is formidable. Life will test you. People will challenge you. Chaos will appear and wait for your response. Do not react. Hold your ground. Let pressure remove what is unnecessary and leave only discipline, clarity, and strength. If these words triggered a shift, leave a comment that says, "I am the storm they cannot break." Let it mark your decision to move differently. And if you want more content that sharpens your thinking and strengthens your psychological edge, support the channel, subscribe, and stay connected. The rules have changed, and so have you.